And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to Old Pucks Hockey Chat with Scott and Chris, November 27th edition.
Yeah, Thanksgiving edition.
The Thanksgiving, that's absolutely right. Thanksgiving, Turkey Day tomorrow.
Yep.
Very much looking forward to chowing down. But definitely some things that we need to, some topics of interest, especially since our last broadcast. New developments in the hockey world in the past couple days. And what happened, Scotty? You blurred out a little bit there.
I don't know. Should be. I think it should be okay.
Autofocus kicking.
Maybe.
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
A little fuzzy.
Well, let's just keep it rolling.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're rolling.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing, I think, a couple things just to comment on. One of which it was in the last broadcast, Scotty. You were the first for me to hear a report of a rookie who has since been yet named as Mitch Marner coming forth in regard to Mike Babcock and about the story you mentioned, where Babcock called him out and wanted this rookie, Marner, to name the hardest working players on the team privately in a private conversation, one-on-one conversation. And then with that information, Babcock took it and read it aloud in front of the entire team in the locker room, which is a little screwy. Something's off there. And there's been a lot of chat about that. And I heard a lot of it being discussed on NHL Network. And people within the hockey world who know Babcock, have played for Babcock, or have associated themselves with Babcock, are kind of coming forward and not really protecting him or getting his back maybe the way I thought. It actually might be the other way. Although some of these people have been very professional in the way they've put some information forth, they haven't been quick to defend him. They've been trying to subtly say that they have stories similar or know of situations that are similar. So, one thing I don't like, and I definitely want to get your opinion on this immediately, is that why do people wait? I think one person comes forth with a story, and then everyone, you get this media sort of snowball effect, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon. Now, this isn't to say that there's something a little screwy with a lot of coaches. I'm sure a lot of coaches have their quirks, have their things that maybe the players don't agree with, and so on. But so I think that just the media playing it up and the snowball effect and the natural response of just people in general to kind of jump on that bandwagon, maybe kick someone while they're down effect isn't really. I'm trying not to let that maybe cloud my judgment specifically with this case, but it also did come out that players specifically named as Matt Martin and Leo Komarov, who have since been traded to the Islanders, as we know, came to Marner's defense, confronted Babcock, and vehemently defended Marner, and we all know what happened there. They got traded at the next opportunity. So what do you make of all this?
So, I mean, you mentioned it right away. You said, kicking a guy while he's down, and it's pretty easy to hype up it's easy to gang up on somebody when they've just been released. You pretty much summed up the Babcock situation fairly well. I do think it's important to add, though, that reporters reached out to Babcock, who owned up to it, didn't deny it, said absolutely did it. He had a conversation with Mitch Marner after the fact. I don't know if I read that there was an actual apology, so to speak, but certainly he did Roger up to it. He did say, yes, I did do that. He meant, his explanation was he meant it as a motivational factor. So along the same lines, right, there are cerebral coaches in the NHL right now. There are coaches who can really push buttons on players. They know they do psychological profiles. You have coaches who have degrees in psychology,
such as Babcock, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of his background.
I think they mentioned that on NHL Network.
Yeah, so great. Yeah, I mean that's a great thing to throw in there. I mean, so there are coaches are finding out now that it's not just about yelling and screaming. It's about really figuring out how to, what buttons to push for the players. So it may not have been the appropriate method. It may not have been the appropriate thing for Babcock to do, but to his credit, he did take ownership of it. Right. He did come out and say, "Yes, I did that." So the thing was interesting to me is I talked about the last time we were on was doing research, seeing if there were any other stories that really came up on Babcock, and there were a couple hints. There are some players who hold grudges or didn't like the way they were talked to by Babcock and the way they were treated, and obviously some folks had some confrontations with them and they were traded, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. But of course, then we have Bill Peters, the Calgary Flames coach, that comes out, and this kind of got me thinking a little bit. I'm kind of torn about cancel culture, and what I mean about cancel culture is in today's world, you have people who will go out of their way to just look up anything, find anything, and destroy you with it. They have nothing better to do with their time than to go back and look at things you did 20 years ago, 10 years ago, posted something on Twitter, Facebook, whatever the case may be. So, I have a hard time with that. Now, I think though, with the statement by players about Babcock and the way that they were treated by him, I think it may have opened the door in much the same way that Weinstein and the Me Too movement opened the door for Hollywood. And so, of course, we have Bill Peters, who the first story that came out was that he basically abused players, whether it was verbally or whether it was physically. And so Akeem Alou was a rookie playing for Bill Peters. And he came out and said, now he's not playing anymore, so he's got nothing to lose. There's no gain for him in this. But he came out and said that Bill Peters used racist slurs against him on multiple occasions. And there's been no corroboration specifically of that case. However, what Akeem said was he was afraid to speak up because he was a rookie. He was afraid to be labeled. He was afraid that he would get into trouble, would lose playing time, that it would affect his career. And athletes that are, so professional athletes in any sport, they're always fighting for a spot on a roster. There are guys lined up out the door who can take their place. So, certainly, it's not hard to imagine that he felt threatened, that he felt like, he couldn't say anything because this was a coach, and he just had to take it. So, you get that story, and then there's more that comes out. So then it comes out that Bill Peters, as the coach of Carolina, was accused of punching and kicking players.
Yeah.
And so and that story is actually corroborated. So Rod Brindamore, who played for Carolina and then was on Carolina's coaching staff, corroborated the story and said that, yeah, he actually punched and kicked players while in Carolina. And so, now you have a problem. The Flames have a problem that they have to investigate. And you wonder what else is going to come out. And, you have players who kept their mouths shut because they feared losing ice time. They feared losing their spot on the roster.
Well, we know this isn't the only situation. I'm sure there's probably hundreds of examples such as this one that exist. And the reason we haven't heard of it is exactly for what you're saying right now. Yep.
And, but it extends even further than that, right? So if you think about it, Joe Paterno in Penn State is a perfect example of he didn't do it, but he knew about it. He was told about allegations of abuse, and he was held responsible for actions he didn't take because he didn't do more. And that's really what it boils down to. And now doing more is held, it's an opinion. It's not necessarily a fact. He might tell you that he did enough, but the point being here is that Ron Francis, who was the GM in Carolina, was allegedly told about the actions of Peters. And so Peters wasn't dismissed. As far as the players were concerned, they didn't see him do anything to stop this. So now Ron Francis is out of a job. He's looking for a job. He's been talked about as the GM, or he's been connected as potentially being GM for the Seattle team, which hasn't been named. They haven't done anything. No expansion draft. So things could obviously change between now and when they officially come of age in Seattle. But now you have a GM who didn't do anything to protect the players.
Right.
Is anybody going to want to go play for that team? What kind of leverage does he have? So, again, these actions happened a long time ago. Is there a statute of limitations? Should people know what's going on? Should players feel empowered? I mean, so you're an athlete, right? And you've coached and mentored younger players, coming up through the sport, the sport of tennis. How much power, how much leverage do you have over some of these younger people who feel like they have to do everything that you say, and maybe feel like they have to take any kind of abuse? Not that you abuse them. I'm just hypothetically speaking, like they have to take whatever you give them in order to get ahead. I mean, do you kind of feel like that permeates sports, especially at a younger age?
It carries over through all sports, and I think it's actually just an abuse of power. You get someone that is in a superior position over someone else, and it's an unfortunate part of just human nature, I guess, or a souring of human nature, we should say, that someone feels that they can exploit someone else and exercise their power over them, and it's an unfortunate thing. It's going to exist everywhere, though.
I'll throw one more example out, and I won't go into too many details. But Theo Fleury, right. He wrote a book several years ago, but he was sexually abused by his coach when he was a kid. When he was a kid, and he felt like he had to take this in order for his career to be successful. And he says that his being abused was due, the fact that he became an alcoholic, the fact that he would go out of his way to hide drug tests, that just his life fell apart, that he wasted all of his money. He directly attributes to this coach who sexually abused him when he was a kid. And his parents enabled it. His parents left him with this coach. His parents didn't speak up or didn't do anything to prevent it. And the reason why is because they got caught up in his success. They got caught up in the fact that their kid was now successful being with this coach. And that hides a lot. And so, I think it's important, not just with these particular incidents with Bill Peters, and Mike Babcock to a lesser extent, but it's important today for athletes to be able to speak up without fear of retribution. And it's just as important that, when GMs and owners are hiring coaches and assistant coaches, that they know what they're getting. They do their due diligence, and they don't put people in place that are going to, as you said, abuse that power and abuse that, take advantage of that leverage they have over those players, because nobody should have to worry about getting kicked or punched, called racist slurs, be sexually abused, lose ice time, lose a roster spot, be traded. I mean, holy cow. You had guys that stood up for one of their teammates to the coach, and they got traded.
Yep.
What does that say about an organization? That's crap. That's crap. So, and then what does it do to the player in the long term? They doubt themselves. There's all sorts of
It's one of those things where the only solution that I can see to something like this is when a coach is in the presence, or if a player is in the presence of a coach, and there needs to be some form of private interaction, a private meeting, a private conversation. It's almost like a doctor visit now. You need that third party present to witness what's going on, right? So it's almost like coaches should no longer be able to have that one-on-one discussion without an assistant coach present. Was there anyone else present? That's one thing with this Marner Babcock situation. Was there anyone else present at the time it occurred, or I believe from what I understand, it was just one-on-one?
Yeah, I mean, the stories that I'm hearing was it was one-on-one, but then of course Babcock read the list, and so to recap, Babcock asked Marner to make a list of players on the roster and put them in order by work ethic.
Right.
And so that's just for the viewers. Anybody who hasn't.
Do you think this would have happened if there was a third party present at the initial conversation?
Maybe. I mean, you got to remember, this is Mike Babcock you're talking about.
I hear you, but maybe it's one of those things where if an assistant coach is present at the time of that, they have. Let's think of how it would go down. Babcock calls Marner into his office, right? Says, sit down. I want to have a conversation with you. I want you to write down on this piece of paper, I want you to list all the players on the team by order of work ethic, from the hardest working to the least hardest working, right? And now, as he's having this conversation, there's an assistant coach sitting right there. Now, the assistant coach might be aware of what Babcock was just about to mention or not, but now he's hearing it. Marner writes it down. Babcock says, Mitch, thank you very much. You can leave now. Now there's an opportunity for that assistant coach to be like, yo, Mike, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Like, what are you going to do with this list? And Babcock will probably say, you know what? I'm going to do this. Or he might say, don't worry about it. Right? But at least there might be that chance to catch this. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And now it becomes one of those things where I think if this was more of a regulation across the league, if something like this were to occur, I think the onus should now be on the administrative staff, such as it should be the assistant coach responsibility for not reporting it, and it shouldn't be on the players to have the stress and fear of having to report this. It's almost like reporting someone for cheating, right? In college. You take an oath, you're looking to do the right thing. Okay, yep. So now what happens going forward, assistant coaches are required to be in all meetings with a coach whenever they meet with a player, right? That's now an NHL rule. Let's say that they make that an NHL rule. If there's any sign or sniff or smell of misconduct, it is now the responsibility of that assistant coach to report it to the GM. Right? And now you have a chain going up. And now there's going to be a fear, almost like, not a fear, but that assistant coach has a little bit more power now than they did before. And at least they know that there's a chain that they can go to someone, but at least now the players are protected. Right?
Yeah.
The players have that level of protection, and they shouldn't really, going forward, it'll start to eliminate. You'll see less and less of that fear of having to come forward to report something like this, because it should be on the assistant coach. And if something did like, say a player does come forward with a story about something that happens in a meeting with a coach, and an assistant coach was present, now that assistant coach gets reviewed along with the coach, and you know what? If they're both if one's going to go, they both go.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's a way of diminishing it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Got to be checks and balances. There's got to be checks and balances.
no, there certainly is. And agents may need to get involved. GMs may need to get involved from like an open door policy. There's something to be said for not undermining the coach. There's something to be said for giving the coach the opportunity to coach. But to your point, going back to how that scenario played out was Mike Babcock could have said, hey guys, hey staff, come on in here. So I'm trying to go through a learning opportunity or teaching opportunity with Mitch here, and I had him write this list out because I want him to find somebody on the team to model himself after. Who does he look up to? Who has the best work ethic? Can he recognize that? And then maybe he seeks them out as a mentor. So I'm wondering, what do you guys think if I read this list in front of the group? And then hopefully an assistant coach would step up and say, you're an idiot. That's the worst thing you can do is tear apart the locker room. Or Babcock could have gone to the captain at the time and said, what do you think about this list that Mitch came up with? And maybe you let the captain deal with it from a player perspective.
Right.
I think Babcock was trying to do some teaching. I don't think he was trying to cause division in the room. But again, you also have a guy who just got this monster contract who was listening to the news likely and said, he's the best coach in the world. And then maybe that went to his head. Maybe he got too big for his britches. The thing that I do want to put out, though, is that and really just going to go ahead and quote Evander Kane, who basically said that Babcock and Bill Peters are two different stories. Like they are not, they shouldn't be in the same, they shouldn't be lumped into the same thing. So in other words, you could say they are two bad coaches who made bad decisions. But, Evander Kane summed it up very well. He said they're two very situations. Babcock, he said that he thinks Babcock may have been using it as a tactic or motivational tool. He said most people wouldn't agree with it, but hey, that's what a coach does. With Peters, using racial slurs, being, physically abusive to the players. I mean, how do you stand on a bench and just kick a dude in the back? This is a grown man.
I heard that. Yeah, I read that.
So again, I mean, I think I've, at least for me, I feel like I made the point, and same thing with you, in that the players need to have the ability to speak up. They shouldn't expect to be abused, and they certainly shouldn't live in fear of retribution for a roster spot or ice time or the fear of just even being traded. When they get to be in the NHL and when they're playing at a professional level.
Yeah, I think, and I kind of just burped up that idea as we've been talking, but I think that sounds, and I'm kind of running it through my head. It's, someone's has to have the players back. And it sounds like, a little bit of oversight and a little bit of checks and balances need to be in place. And the best way is to incorporate multiple people in a meeting. You can't have these one-on-ones where it becomes a he said, she said, and someone fearing the results of what's going to happen and so on. There has to be a way to corroborate what the actual events were. And
that's what captains are for. You bring the captain in because the captain's supposed to own the locker room. Now,
well, the captain. Hey, listen, the captain's not immune to being, seeing some ice time go away. Also,
sure, no, absolutely.
I think it has to be on the other end. I don't think it has to be a player. I think it has to be another coach.
Could be. Last thing I want to throw in on this story is that Yahoo Sports in their NHL section has there was a tweet that went out from Eric Francis of Sportsnet. Eric Francis Sportsnet reported that Bill Peters has left the Flames. So he's left the team physically, but is still employed by the club. Right. So it was already reported he wouldn't be behind the bench tonight. Yeah. But apparently he's now no longer in the hotel room or in the same hotel as the team that he's physically left the team. So I don't honestly, even if the reports are found to be false, I don't know how you come back from this, And again, that's kind of why I don't like the cancel culture. I don't like it when things come out about people, because once it's out in the court of public opinion, you are guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
I think everything that they're saying about Bill Peters is true. So in this case, I have no doubt in the story. I'm not doubting anyone. So yeah, it's just, what I hope doesn't happen is I hope we don't hear more stories of current or recently fired or recently retired coaches where we hear more of this stuff. Because at the end of the day, yeah, these guys are players. Yeah, they're employees. Yeah, they got to be motivated, but they're human beings.
Yep.
They all wear the same jersey, and they're given everything they can for the team. They all want to succeed, and they don't deserve, a jerk behind the bench as their coach.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else you want to throw out about that?
I think we've this has run its course. I think we've pretty much sliced and diced it, and so has the media. So unless we hear more news in the coming days, I think we can put this one to bed.
Yeah. All right.
Well done, sir. What else do you have?
That's kind of it. I mean, there's some games going on. I mean, I was watching the Penguins game, the Penguins against the Canucks, which should have been I would have thought would have been an easy one, but it's now 6-6. So you got a game that's in the third period with 12 goals scored. So that's a shootout. It's exciting hockey, I guess, unless you're a fan of either team. So yeah. Other than that, I mean, that's kind of all I'm looking at.
And I know you're very critical of the time I spend talking about the Islanders, but let's very quickly just mention obviously the point streak came to an end on the most random way possible. Just a road trip in Anaheim, nothing very dramatic, a 3-0 loss. But I will give you credit because you called exactly how that would go down if it were to go down, and that was John Gibson playing great hockey that night. So kudos to you. I think that, I didn't think they were going to lose, but I didn't think they were going to kill him either. I know that, there were a couple shots of the Islanders on the bench when they played against San Jose, and you saw a couple of them yawning, so maybe you got the time differential and so on. And maybe it's just getting to them a little bit. They've been working hard, and now they're on a road trip working hard, and I'm sure some of them are tired. But if they were to win that, I wasn't expecting a blowout. But at the same time, I guess in a way it doesn't surprise me that they did lose. Trotz had a great quote, and I'm sure I'm not going to find it right now. But bottom line is, he wasn't happy with the effort. He thought people started to feel like maybe they had their fill of the win streak and that they were becoming complacent. He didn't call people out, but the people feel that he's looking at the captain Anders Lee and Jordan Eberle. They haven't scored in a little bit, and he's looking to them to step up and lead the team a little bit more. And I think he's right. So. It's good to see that, and as I've been saying all along, the coaches are not letting these guys let the media dictate the mood. They are keeping a stranglehold on them as far as what is being fed to them and what their mentality should be going forward. So it's going to be interesting this evening to see how they bounce back against the LA Kings, who happen to have a winning record at home, surprisingly enough. And we'll see what happens there tonight. Your thoughts, Scotty? Yeah,
I mean, good hockey is good hockey, and to see a team go on a tear, it's always exciting. You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I don't agree with that mentality, but I'll let you keep going.
No. I mean,
people don't go on 17-game win streaks by accident.
No. No, that's not the point I'm making. So again, I lived through a streak very similar to that here in Norfolk with the Admirals. I mentioned it on a previous broadcast. They won 28 games in a row.
Right.
Right, won 28 games in a row, not got points, but won.
Right. That's awesome.
And then they went into the Calder Cup and swept a couple series. I mean, so the thing was, every night we watched them play, and they would be down by 2 or 3 goals, and we would be sure that would be it. And then, sure enough, they came back. So nobody was cheering for them to lose. Nobody was expecting them to lose, but it was just one of those like, man, this is awesome, but really, how long can this go on?
Right.
And the players, to their credit, when you talk to them, and I'm sure it was the same in the Islanders locker room, they didn't dwell on the streak. Like, they acknowledged it, especially for the fans, and of course because the media all asked them, it's, oh, you won 13, now it's 14. So Tyler Johnson was oftentimes interviewed as a number one star after the game, and he'd say like 12's a fluke, 13's a streak, 13's a fluke, 14's a streak, that kind of stuff, right? So they would try and temper it. And New York, the Islanders were doing the same thing. I mean, you talked about it. You heard that the way that Trotz was talking and trying to temper the locker room. My point here is that you can't win all 82 games. You can't get points in all 82. So it's just a matter of when is it going to happen. And unfortunately, you get teams that go on a tear and they just run into a really hot goalie. You just run into a really hot goalie.
No, I agree with you. And maybe I jumped on you there, but because I've heard it just in the media, like people expect them to now crash the other way.
No. Nope. Definitely. I'm not going that way.
No. And I know you aren't. But it's and maybe I'm a little trigger happy with my response to that, because it's like, to me, it's so nonsensical to think that a team that plays, it's almost like saying a baseball player, a pitcher, they don't throw a 98 mile per hour fastball by accident, meaning you have to have a lot of ability there and able to hit that once, even if you're just scouting a guy. You scout a guy, you're out in the middle of a farm field in Kansas and you have a radar gun. That guy doesn't throw 98 by accident. It's even if it's just one pitch, that means that there's absolutely a lot of ability there, and you should be watching this guy. So they don't win 17 by accident. It's because, once again, it's a result of high level of play in many different departments, and that happened to result in 17-point earning games. That's all.
Yeah. It's the same thing with the Capitals.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same thing with the Capitals. Yeah. They've lost a couple games. Yeah. Right. But they're still, every night when they come out, they have, it's more likely they're going to win or at least come away with a point than they're going to lose.
Yeah.
The same thing can be said right now about the Islanders. It's more likely they're going to come out of the game with a point or a win than they are going to lose. Right.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to crash. There's been nothing to indicate they were going to crash. Now, they played a lot of close games, but to their credit, they came back from being down goals. Right. I mean, they certainly have a resiliency. The roster hasn't turned over. And again, it's that way on a lot of teams, right? So if the injuries aren't there, if the players are in the lineup and they're playing and they're consistent, consistent play is what a coach wants. A coach knows that a team is not going to win every game, but a coach wants consistent play, because if consistently they play the right way over an 82-game season, they're going to win more than they're going to lose.
Right.
And that's math. That's statistics. That's just how that works. So no, the media, depending upon the who it is that's reporting, whether or not they know anything about sports, whether or not they know anything about hockey, whether or not they know anything about the team that they're covering, they're just going to post sensational headlines just to get views, right? So, I would say for any fan of any team in the NHL, that if they're playing the right way, over the long haul, they're going to win more than they're going to lose. Every team is going to go through a couple losses. Every player is going to go through a scoring drought. It's going to happen. Happens to the best players in the league. So no, there's nothing to worry about there. Just like there's nothing to worry about in Washington. There's nothing to worry about in Boston. There's nothing to worry about really in Carolina. I mean, these are your good teams that are going to consistently stay good.
Speaking of good teams, I wanted to touch on one team that happens to have a few. They're in the news for a few different reasons, and that's the Boston Bruins. And this team is just seems very interesting to me this year. For a variety of reasons. One is, you know, my utmost respect for a player like Zdeno Chara. That this guy is still just playing solid hockey.
Yeah, he gets around well on the ice in his wheelchair.
I mean, he's doing it. He's doing it. But a couple things I wanted to touch on. Number one is Marchand. This guy right now has 42 points, and we are 42 points, and we are 24. They've played 24 games, right? So 42 points. I mean, this guy's gonna, if he stays on track, he's gonna hit like 135 points on the season. Is this real?
Yeah, and you know what's even more incredible? Only 13 of those points are on the power play. I mean, the rest of the stuff's even strength. It's crazy.
Power play points. I mean, yeah, the guy is just playing out of his mind. I mean, and Pasternak's not far behind with 39 points, right? So that top line is absolutely killing it, right? Now, that's the one thing about the Bruins that piqued my interest is that, holy cow, that top line. But then at the same time, we get into, unfortunately, a player that I've always admired watching is Patrice Bergeron is out. He did not go on the road trip. He's 34 years old with a lower body injury. Not a good thing to be experiencing, as you get older. And Bruce Cassidy says that there's no timeline on his return. And when Bruce was asked if Bergeron, who was fresh off a Forces game on Saturday, was considering a procedure similar to Sidney Crosby, who is currently out 6 weeks after surgery to repair a core muscle injury.
Yep.
Bruce said that he wasn't sure whether the two injuries were relatable or not. I guess the press picks up on, hey, he has a lower body injury, and this guy also has a lower body injury, and they try to make a correlation there. But unfortunate, so that top line gets broken up, right? So now what they did was they slid David Krejci into the top spot in the top line center, and he's flanked by Marchand. And Pasternak, that second line, goes to left wing DeBrusk, center Brendan Gaunce, and then Charlie Coyle on the right wing. So, things getting shook up there. But at the same time, the two guys that are sort of, providing the results are Marchand and Pasternak. So, I'm not saying that they're not going to miss Bergeron. Obviously, Bergeron is a big piece of that chemistry, but I'm sure, and I think Krejci's going to be able to step right in, and Pasternak and Marchand aren't going to skip a beat, it seems like, because these two guys are point leaders in the whole league. So, thoughts on the chemistry there with that top line?
Well, I mean, you look at so David Krejci against Montreal had 2 assists. 2 points was a +1. And then the game before against Minnesota, he had 2 goals. Right. So, I mean, it's not like Krejci's not, doing good things.
Oh, no, he definitely is. He's definitely one of the higher guys, top 4 player on that team.
So against that game in Minnesota on the 23rd, Bergeron had 4 assists. Right. Krejci had 2 goals. Obviously, Krejci was not in this game against Montreal where, and you had the roster shift move around. But, in that game against Montreal, Brad Marchand, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Right. So I think Boston, benefits from having guys in the lineup and have depth where they can make those changes. And I think Boston's going to continue to crank out. I think between Marchand and Pasternak, they're going to continue to put up points. I think they're going to cool off because teams are, they're going to get set. They're eventually going to figure out how to play against them, matchups and things like that.
Right.
But it's then it becomes incumbent upon the coach to figure out how to spread the lineup around and how to make the lineup work. And
Right.
You just go down the lineup in Boston, and they've got a lot of depth. They've got guys that can chip in, and they've obviously found ways to win even when they're not putting the puck in the net 4 or 5 times a night. And it's the same thing with the Islanders, same thing with the Capitals. These are all great teams that find a way to win, and their coaches find a way to get the best out of their players.
Yeah. I also wanted to touch on a player that I wouldn't say I really follow, but has always caught my attention, even with the Wild, which is Charlie Coyle.
Yep.
This guy, I don't know how to explain him. He's been streaky, but yet shown flashes of being a really good, solid player. And when he was with the Wild, it made me think, man, if he just I always thought if the chemistry, they could only find the chemistry for this guy with on a line, and they played around, and maybe sometimes when he would play to other guys, he'd get a little, that's where he would catch on fire, and then they'd move someone off a line, then he'd go maybe a little bit cold, but he had such flashes. He's not a guy that you take in a draft of your fantasy league. He's a guy when you're in midseason and someone maybe on your team goes cold and you want to look, he might be more toward the top of the list as far as a free available player that, okay, he's caught fire, let me swap him and I'll take a chance on him. But this guy, since he's been with the Bruins, I feel like whenever I'm flipping through my videos on YouTube and watching highlights that are put out of games, this guy's almost in every highlight reel. When they go through the 8-minute game recap, somewhere in there, Charlie Coyle, working hard, battling in a corner, comes away with the puck and sets up somebody for an assist. I mean, he has 14 points. He's got 9 assists, and that's behind the other 2 studs on the team. If we look at where he has 9 assists. I mean, Boston's just playing really well, but I mean, he is behind Marchand, Pasternak, Bergeron, Krug, and Krejci. I mean, and then the rest of the team is behind that. So he's the number 6 guy in assists. And in goals, he's down the list a little bit more because he has 5. But well, actually, I take it back. He's 4th on the list with 5. So 4th on the list with goals, 6th in assists, and he is. Whenever I see these game recaps and I'm watching the Boston, if I haven't tuned into the game, he's working hard and he looks good and he looks consistent. And he was just rewarded the other day with a 6-year contract with an annual cap hit of $5.25 million. Good for him.
Yes.
Solid deal. That's a solid deal for this guy. He's been, kind of flounder. I don't want to see, maybe floundering's too tough a term, but kind of, just existing with the Wild. Gets an opportunity, definitely an upgrade going to Boston, finding his groove and proving himself to this team, and boom, nails it. And I just feel happy for the guy.
Yep.
Over his 8-year career, he skated in 524 NHL games, compiling 98 goals and 164 assists for 262 points. He has added 16 goals and 15 assists for 31 points in 68 career postseason games.
So
good for him.
Yeah, something interesting here too. If you look, so he peaked back in 16-17 with Minnesota with 56 points.
Right.
Then the 2 seasons after, he was injured. He didn't play. He only played in was 66 games in 17-18 and 60 games in 18-19. His production dropped off commensurate with with the games that he missed.
Right.
So last year in Boston, or he got traded. So 2018, 2019, he played in 60 games for Minnesota. Then he played 21 games for Boston. So yeah, I mean, these are hardworking guys. So along that same line, Chris Wagner also signed a contract with Boston. Yep. It's a 3-year deal.
Yep.
And Wagner is one of those guys. He's a fourth line guy. I watched him play here in Norfolk when he belonged to the Anaheim organization, and used to love interviewing him. The guy was just a spark plug. He gave 100% every night. And to your point, guys like Charlie Coyle and Chris Wagner, they are engines. They just go. Coaches love them. They can put them on. They grind the puck. Yep. They're consistent. You know what you're going to get every time. They don't make mistakes.
Yep.
They just go get the puck. They hold on to the puck. They throw hits. They win face-offs. They win puck battles. Coaches love those guys. Yep. And so yeah, I mean, it's those are great feel-good stories. And the fact that they get to play on a team like Boston with the talent that they have, they're along for the ride. They're not passengers per se. They're rowing the boat, but they're getting to watch and participate in some great hockey with some great players, and it's just good for them. It's just really good for them with everything that they've gone through in their careers, and just giving them an opportunity to land on a team that's really appreciative of their efforts.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
So.
Good stuff.
Yeah, 8-6, by the way. Pittsburgh, Vancouver, 8-6. Pittsburgh just won. Malkin just scored from his behind. He was actually sliding on the ice and put the puck in an empty net. So, yeah, definitely not. This is the kind of game where coaches pull their hair out when their team's given up 6 goals or 8 goals. But fun for fans.
5 seconds left, though.
Yeah, 0.2 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 0.2. No worries. So,
oh, yeah, there it is.
Yep. So that's all I got, man. That's all I got.
We are off until due to the North American break here, Thanksgiving break. We are going to be back. Well, we do have a game tomorrow. The Devils and the Canadiens. What do you think of that one?
I mean, that's that.
Canadiens just got whooped the other night.
They did. They absolutely got their butts kicked. I think they're going to come back. The New Jersey, hasn't been. New Jersey hasn't been doing well of late. They're 4-6-0 in their last 10.
Yeah.
Montreal is, they've got 27 points. They're 10 behind Boston in the Atlantic Division. New Jersey is, kind of bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Minus 23 goal differential. I mean, there's a lot of things going wrong. And so New Jersey is also an interesting story too. They put Corey Schneider on waivers earlier this week. And I was listening to NHL Network earlier this week, and somebody made a great point, and I think it bears repeating. I can't remember specifically who it was, but when the Devils traded and got Corey Schneider, and Corey Schneider was between the pipes, the Devils were winning games that they should not have won.
Right.
Corey Schneider covered for a lot of deficiencies on that team, made that team look better than they were. He kept them in games that they had no business being in.
Right.
They didn't have the personnel to complement what he was giving them. And so, I think New Jersey is on the right track. They're signing guys. They're trying to put a core together. But it's interesting just how important the goaltending position is to a team, and what it can do to make up for deficiencies in other places in the lineup.
Who's going to win?
I'm going with Montreal. I think Carey Price stands on his head, and I think Montreal is going to take that one.
I'll go with that also. I'm going to go with that also. Then we get into Friday. And we'll go through the Friday predictions, and then we're going to we'll call it a night. Friday, November 29th. Rangers Bruins.
I'm going to go with Boston. Henrik Lundqvist has looked like crap of late. And that's an afternoon game, so the players aren't going to like that anyway. That's at 1:00 in the afternoon. Yeah. So I'm going to go with Boston.
Yep. Same here. Bruins. Jets, Ducks.
Jets.
See, the way they list this here, where is this game? Oh, and by the way, just so you know, one of the most depressing things about the Islanders' loss to Anaheim the other night was, on Monday night, was that, and feel free, Anaheim fans, to send me an email or a text or anything you want, but there were fans in the seats there for that game. There were a lot of fans in the seats for that game. The place, it could have been mistaken for a funeral. Those fans were dead. Not a single chant, not a single song, nothing. The entire game. God forbid an Anaheim fan goes to an Islanders game at the barn, at the Coliseum. They'll lose their mind. It's just constant chanting. This place was dead quiet. And then someone scores a goal. All of a sudden, yay. And then music, the organ starts playing and this and that. And then dead right after that. I couldn't believe how quiet. Really? Holy cow. Get these people a pizza and a beer or something. What the heck? I couldn't believe how quiet that is. All right. Anyway, Jets, Ducks.
I'm going to go with Jets.
Yeah, I'll go with Jets. Kings, Sharks.
Sharks.
I don't know what the way they list this. You're going to say Sharks?
Yep.
Sharks have been trying to turn it around as of late. I'll go with Sharks. Avalanche, Blackhawks.
I'm going to go with Colorado. I'm going with the Avalanche.
I'm going to go with the Blackhawks. Senators, Wild.
Minnesota. This is Minnesota, lesser of two evils.
Oh, man. I'll go Wild. Maple Leaf, Sabres.
Toronto.
Sabres.
All right.
Red Wings, Flyers.
Oh, God. This is on NBC. I think this is on NBC Sportsnet, too. This is like their afternoon game. Are you kidding me right now? Oh, God.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know what kind of a market share they expect to get on that.
What are they thinking? It's so bad.
I don't know. I'll go with Philly. They pulled one out the other night. They looked all right. I'm going to go with Philly over Detroit.
Heck, why not? All right, Flyers. Ooh, Lightning, Capitals.
That's going to be a good one.
ESPN Plus.
I think the Lightning are going to pull that one out. I'm going to say the Lightning are going to win in overtime in that game.
I'll be rooting for the Lightning as an Islanders fan, but they've been too streaky. The Capitals have just been solid. You have to beat the Caps. You have to beat them. They're not gonna. They just aren't having. They're not giving away many soft games. They're not. I think I'm going with the Caps.
All right.
Coyotes, Golden Knights.
Vegas. I think Fleury's going to stand on his head and pull that one out.
I'm going to go Coyotes on that one. Penguins, Blue Jackets.
Pittsburgh's just been playing consistent hockey lately.
Yeah.
I think Pittsburgh's going to win that one.
I agree with you. Predators, Hurricanes.
Carolina.
I agree with you. Carolina. Blues, Stars. Oof.
So
interesting.
It seems like these days all somebody has to do is go in the news media and say something derogatory about the Dallas Stars players. And by somebody, I mean somebody within the organization.
Yeah.
And that just seems to wake them up,
It
because
does. You're right.
as soon as somebody from the organization says, man, these guys just haven't been playing well, like the next night they dump in like 8 goals. It's crazy. So I'm going to watch the news. I'm going to see if anybody makes any comments. And right now I'm going to go with Dallas. But
I agree. I agree. Very good, sir.
So, yeah, that's a lot of games that day.
All right. Well, covered a lot. I think our next opportunity to connect is going to be on Sunday, December 1st. So we'll enter the new year together. I mean, the new month together.
Yeah.
And between now and then, obviously, we have Thanksgiving tomorrow. So I hope everyone enjoys the holiday and eats a lot. Anything on your end, sir?
No, just wanted to wish everybody a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time with your family, your relatives. Be safe. It's just it's good to get a little bit of time off, and so take advantage of it.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for another live session here on Periscope. We will continue with it on Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We thank you very much. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you real soon.
All right.
Good night.
Take care.